From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Congress hears about the administration's trade plans, including how those aid payments were calculated. Plus, an update as Florence makes landfall. Agribusiness, livestock markets hang tough.
It has potential to be very explosive. It looks like it's not under wraps.
And meet a California couple working to protect their grassland and the environment.
AgDay, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Senators on the Ag Committee seeking clarification on the future of trade and aid from 3 administration officials with extensive involvement. Chief U.S. Ag Trade Negotiator Greg Dowd, Undersecretary Ted McKinney, and USDA Chief Economist Rob Johansson answering questions from the committee about the administration's plans and end results on trade. Our national reporter Betsy Gibbon joins us now with more.
There is no shortage of conversation at the Senate Ag Committee's hearing on trade. Those testifying sharing what they claim are trade downfalls.
Currently, the United States runs an agricultural trade deficit of over $15 billion with the EU.
As well as what they say are accomplishments.
We are making some headway. Last year, these included easing of regulations on U.S. citrus into the EU, resumption of U.S. DDGs into Vietnam, reentry of U.S. chipping potatoes in Japan.
McKinney saying when the year is complete, USDA will have doubled the number of formal ag trade missions from the past couple of years. However, a lot of attention is focused on USDA's chief ag economist, Robert Johansson, who helped develop the president's Trump tariff aid plan and how he came up with the numbers for farmer payment assistance.
So when we put this program together, certainly one way we could have done it is by keying off of prices. We decided not to use the price driven methodology, but to look at gross trade damages.
He says that's why trade damages are simply going to be higher for those commodities that have exported significant quantities to China.
And that's why you see such a large component of the program being directed to producers of soybeans, since soybeans was our largest export to China. And for on the other hand, for producers of corn, for example, we don't sell as much corn for a lot of reasons, understandably, but to the retaliating countries, the EU and China in this sense for corn, and that's why the payments to corn producers are so much smaller.
Some ag groups, such as the National Association of Wheat Growers, says their assistance of 14 cents per bushel is too low, saying in a statement China hasn't purchased any wheat from the United States since March. Further, we estimate that the ongoing trade war will cause a 75-cent per bushel price decrease and a reduction in global wheat production. Some senators during the hearing questioning why cotton, for example, is seeing payments when their prices have not been as hurt as other sectors.
We sell a lot of cotton to China, and that's the reason why we would expect these tariffs to significantly impact cotton exports to China. So because of because we use the sort of the WTO approach of looking at trade damages and not necessarily looking specifically to prices, we show damages from the tariffs to the 232 and 301 actions to be what they are for soybeans, cotton, sorghum, and down the list, including some of the specialty crops.
However, Johansson says the methodology could change if there's a second payment coming in late 2018 or early 2019.
And that may include consideration of other factors such as prices, trade, other tariffs that may occur, or as some of the other senators are likely to ask later today, basis effects that you may see in different parts of the country.
McKinney and Dowd both touching on the potential for ag markets. Dowd saying a bilateral deal with Japan is still a top priority for him.
All right, thanks, Betsy. Speaking of trade, work and waiting continues on whether we'll see a new NAFTA agreement. Mexican Secretary of the Economy saying this week there was a high chance of the U.S. and Canada reaching a trade deal in the coming days. President Trump also revealing plans to rebrand the North American Free Trade Agreement as the USMC Pact for the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. He says they'll drop the C if Canada and the U.S. don't reach an agreement. Farmers with the National Farmers Union fall legislative fly-in, spending the week in Washington, D.C., talking ag policy and trade. Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley telling reporters he believes a trilateral NAFTA deal with Canada included is a better approach when it comes to passing the measure in Congress.
With Canada, I think they're making considerable progress, and I would suggest a compromise that Canada does not want to agree with the United States on the administrative panels for settling trade disputes. I would let Canada have their way on that, and that Canada ought to give us a way on tariffs on American dairy products. I think maybe if it's just the United States and Mexico, it might be a little more difficult getting through the Congress.
The U.S. and Canada have roughly until the end of the month to settle their differences before the text of the U.S. and Mexico agreement is required to be published. The Federal Reserve's beige book showing some of the Fed's 12 districts are reporting slowing growth last month, even as the overall economy expands. This weakness came on the back of concerns over trade. The Fed's St. Louis Bank reporting that farmers in its region believe that the majority of the soybean crop is yet to be priced. The report saying it's, quote, leaving farmers exposed to current market conditions, and that includes trade disruptions and tariff disputes. Farmer Mac economist Jackson Takish says tariffs have a far-reaching impact on the ag economy. He joined me Thursday while I filled in on AgriTalk Radio to discuss that and the lender's quarterly report, The Feed.
You can't understate the importance of trade for U.S. agriculture. About 1 in every $4 or $5, depending on how you measure it, of farm income comes from foreign sources. So we need trade partners, and we've got really great trade partners out there for U.S. farmers. Now, with some of this retaliatory tariff issues that are going on right now, we have about 6 major trading partners that have issued retaliatory tariffs affecting agriculture. Those 6 partners represent about 53% of all exports for U.S. agriculture. So it's a big group, you know.
We should have a better understanding of the size and intensity of Hurricane Florence later today as a slow-moving storm works its way inland. Already heavy rains and wind is working its way across the region. Now, even as the hurricane diminishes in intensity, winds are nearing 100 miles per hour. The system's expected to work its way toward Georgia before cutting north and east over the weekend and into early next week. Mike Hoffman joining us now for a look across farm country. He has today's crop comments. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Clinton. Ryan Heiniger in Des Moines County, Iowa, started up the combine on Monday. He says yields are better than he anticipated given the below-average moisture his area received this summer. He says his second field is averaging 214 bushels per acre. USDA says 73% of the state's corn crop is considered good to excellent. And harvest is moving along in Missouri as well. An AgDay viewer on Twitter telling us harvest is occurring in the Show Me State. USDA says 12% of Missouri's corn crop is harvested, 2 points above the 5-year average. Now, taking a look at the wind speed forecast, obviously, with the hurricane hitting North and South Carolina, Florence is going to cause some major winds, destructive winds over the next 24 to 48 hours. But it's also going to be breezy in the Central Plains later today and a little bit windy in parts of the west. Heading through the day or nighttime hours tonight, you can kind of pick out the eye there from Florence with a little bit less wind right in the middle of the eye. But as we head through the day tomorrow, then that wind will spread out in the southeast, but it will become pretty windy in parts of the west once again. We'll have your forecast coming up in a few minutes. But first, here are some hometown temps.
Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.
It's been another big week for livestock markets. We'll talk about that next at the Agribusiness Desk, and later, helping the environment and future generations by being good stewards of the land. In the markets, traders trying to digest the latest data dump from USDA. Let's see where things stand from our friends on the floor.
Lean hogs all over the place, very volatile. We're trying to stay away from day trading the October contract. It's like throwing blindfolded darts. There's just not a whole lot of clarity. We're looking at establishing a longer-term long position in the December and February contracts, and we're using this with a combination of futures and options. Options, a great way to give you some long exposure with limited risk, leaving you kind of at ease as we go through this intraday and intra-week volatilities. Now, moving over to the soybean market, we're a little bit more optimistic for the first time in what seems like a lifetime. We saw yields come in basically in line with expectations, production, carry out basically neutral. So what we're looking at is how we started the week. We saw an immense amount of pressure come in Monday and Tuesday with the expectations we were going to see an ultra bearish USDA report. So that bearish news was priced into the market. It's been all over slope with blue line futures from the floor of the CME.
Jeff French with Top Third Ag Marketing, our guest here at the Agribusiness Desk today. Jeff, as we look at the livestock industry, a couple of things in play right now. On the pork side, it's this African swine fever outbreak over in China. What's your read on that right now?
Well, we have 9 confirmed cases throughout many of the provinces. It has potential to be very explosive. It looks like it's not under wraps. If the Chinese have to cull their hog herd, it's friendly every protein throughout the world. Obviously, their number one supplier on export basis is Europe, but if Europe can't fill those pork needs, they're going to come to us. And maybe they cut a deal. Right now we have a tariff on the pork that's going over there, but they can cut a deal where, potentially maybe they get rid of that tariff. So we'll just have to see, but it came at the right time. I mean, we have absolutely plenty of pork, plenty of beef in the freezer right now, that we could supply them. So it's been a savior.
Yeah. As we talk about beef, those numbers also large from an export standpoint, but also from domestic supplies here.
Yes. And for the August, September timeframe, you're looking at record amount of cattle on feed. But demand has been robust.
Right.
And really, I look at it very simply where Americans are back to work. And when Americans have money in their pocket, they like to eat steak.
Right.
It tastes good.
Yeah.
So demand has been good. I expect it to be good, but we do have some numbers to work through.
Yeah.
There could be some pullbacks along the way, but fourth quarter from the beef side, it looks to be a little bit tighter.
Yeah. Real quick on the price side for pork, any impact to prices as we move through some of these issues over in China?
It's going to be higher. I mean, especially if we get some export demand.
Okay.
And it's, you're starting now to get some speculative buying too, which is good to see.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks, Jeff. We'll be back with more Ag Day here in just a minute.
For a special report on the grain markets, call toll-free at 877-TT-HEDGE. That's 877-884-3343. Join Andrew McRae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast that is all about production agriculture. Farming the Countryside is available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and is brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, the world's largest provider of crop inputs and services.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Your meteorologist Mike Hoffman. As we look at the drought monitor, and Mike, you can see that some of these recent rains are really starting to eat away at the drought.
Yeah, from Missouri to Texas, we're really seeing that whole area shrink up nicely. Now, there are other parts getting a little bit drier, like parts of New England, the northern plains, and the northwest. But I mean, really, when you go back 1 month to see what this looked like in the center of the country, a whole bunch more color there. And each week we've been shrinking up those areas, making them a little more spotty where the worst areas are, from northern Missouri all the way down into Texas. And even this latest one, you can just kind of see some of that color going away because of all the rain that we have seen over the past couple of weeks. So Florence is the big deal on the map. High pressure from New England to the central part of the country to the southwest, keeping things dry. This is a tropical-like system that's going into far northeastern Mexico, and that's going to spread some more rains for southern Texas over the next couple of days. Stationary front across the northern plains. Nothing's really able to move with Florence there, and that's been the case for the past 3 or 4 days. Florence will slowly come inland to North and South Carolina. By later on today, it should be inland. Now, there are some models kind of still keeping it right along the coastline, which would make it a little bit worse and prolong the activity. But it should transition once it's inland to a tropical storm as it weakens, and that will be during the day tomorrow, and by the end of tomorrow it should be just an area of low pressure. Still producing a lot of rain. I mean, we've seen these areas, these remnants of tropical systems produce a foot of rain way away from the coast, and that is definitely still a possibility, especially in the southern Appalachians, and that will cause some severe flooding as we head into the weekend. Precipitation estimates over the past 24 hours, not a lot besides Florence, but we add in the next 36. And, well, the blue area is a foot or more, but that could be double or triple that in some spots. Just keep that in mind. Pretty decent amounts in South Texas, as you can see there as well. The rest of the country, there's not a lot going on, although some thunderstorms in South and Central Florida. Temperatures this afternoon, very comfortable, but 70s and lower 80s across the northern portions of the Corn Belt into the Great Lakes and the Northeast. Still kind of muggy in the southeast and hot in the southwest. Low temperatures tonight going to be in the 50s, 60s, 70s across the plains into the Great Lakes. Well, not 70s in the Great Lakes, obviously, 50s and 60s there, but the 70s will be into the southeast. All because of the big ridge in the east, but you can kind of pick out Florence there as well. Finally gets absorbed into the jet stream as it comes farther north. A little bit of a cool down behind it, and then we start to see the transition to a trough into the middle of the country by the end of next week. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. Heading to Provo, Utah, first of all, partly sunny, rather warm, high of 87 degrees. Little Rock, Arkansas, humid with a mix of clouds and sunshine, high of 90. And New Haven, Connecticut, clouds and some sun. On the humid side, the afternoon high around 77 degrees.
When we come back, we'll talk agronomy and the growing season on Farm Journal College TV. Later, we're off to the Golden State, where these farmers are finding ways to feed their sheep and help the environment. A couple of weeks ago at the Farm Progress Show, I sat down with two agronomists to talk about the growing season. It's today's Farm Journal College TV.
One of the things that we saw this year, Carl, was these ear pops, and that probably goes back to a pretty good window for planting. Is that why these populations are so much higher?
Absolutely. So I've been in Iowa for 3 years with Channel, and hands down, this has been the best planting conditions we've planted into, both from a corn and soybean standpoint. So we got really good established stands. We didn't lose much. Last year we were losing a lot of populations to fungal pathogens like Pythium and other early seedling blights. And this year we just didn't see that because the soil conditions were really fit and probably 10 degrees warmer on average when we were planting.
Yeah. And Brett, that getting off to a good start is a big key here, right? And protecting early and then protecting late. These are not things you can go out to your field and just get rid of. I mean, they're either going to blow in or they're going to be in the soil, right?
Yeah, definitely. So, pathogen presence is a big part of that disease triangle. We think about the environment. We have very little control over the environment. We can try and do some tillage, rotation, and things to manage, but still, under the right conditions, you're going to have disease presence, right? And so our focus is really on that susceptible host. By bringing out products with, not only tolerance to one disease, but 5, you've got a whole portfolio there, regardless of what the conditions or pathogen load may be.
All right, a farm can do more than just provide nutritious food. It can also help scrub the environment. We'll meet a California family doing just that next.
In the Country, brought to you by Kubota's M7060, built to get the job done. See KubotaUSA.com or your local Kubota dealer for more information.
In California, the governor this week signing a law that moves the state entirely away from fossil fuels for electricity, hoping to utilize 100% renewable energy with a goal of 0 carbon emissions. But for the carbon that's in the atmosphere, UC Davis shows us how local farmers are doing their part.
I love this part. This is like my favorite. I could literally sit out here and watch them eat for hours. They're our favorite because of how you manage them and how they impact the land, and they're not quite as hard on it as the pigs are and the chickens are. Don't tell the pigs. Here's where we just moved from, and then we went over there to where the sheep are. And then over there is where we're about to go. We started out over here, so it's already come back. We could when we're finished, we could even come back again and graze another time through. With the sheep, when we move them around, they're in kind of a small area. They're eating down all the grass. We take them off of that area and move them to the next area, and those plants regenerate, and so those nutrients that came from the animal are more readily available not only for the plants but also for all the soil microbes. And so that just kind of creates more activity and, in theory, more carbon sequestration.
And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in and spent part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.